Hey guys, Humphrey here. Welcome back to my channel where we talk all about things personal finance, investing, and entrepreneurship. Now, there are honestly so many great benefits to having a good credit score, especially in America. You're going to save money on car insurance. You're going to improve your chances of getting approved for loans, and actually, you're going to get a lot better interest rates when it comes to big loans such as mortgages. Now, as an example, let's say you want to buy this $500,000 house in Texas. With a good credit score, you might qualify for a 30-year mortgage at a 3% interest rate versus if you just had an average score, your interest rate might be closer to 3.5%. Now, just that 0.5% difference could save you over $39,000. Yes, $39,000 in interest over the course of your mortgage, all from just having a higher credit score. Today, I'm going to share with you guys 5 credit score tips that I wish I knew earlier in life, and by knowing these 5 tips we'll go over today, you're actually going to improve your credit score pretty quickly, and these are tips that you can take immediate action on. I also think that these tips aren't really tips that many people know about, so I just hope that you get some value out of this video. Now, before we get started, I gained another 500 subs since my last video, so I wanted to shout out today Jose Torres. I'm putting $20 in this jar right back here for you, Jose. And as a reminder, guys, for every 500 new subscribers I get, I put $20 in the jar. So right now, I believe the jar stands at about $160. And once it gets to 1,000, you guys get to decide what I invest in. And low key, I'm a little bit kind of scared for that. So make sure to subscribe. It's free and you can always change your mind. All right, so the first tip that I wish I knew earlier is actually a hack. And I actually like to call it the authorized user hack. If you can become an authorized user on someone else's credit account, you essentially can piggyback on the length of their credit history. And as a reminder, guys, the length of your credit history accounts for 15% of your total credit score. Now, for this to work, you need a family member or someone you trust very much with a long-standing credit history and an account in good standing. Your parents or your relatives are really good places to start. Now, being in good standing means that they've not missed any payments on their credit lines and that they've actually kept their utilization pretty low. And I'll actually have a little bit more on utilization in the next tip, so we'll talk about that soon. But anyways, if you can get someone to agree to add you as an authorized user on their account, what actually ends up happening is that the on-time payments that they make will also count toward the on-time payments on your credit score or your credit report. The other thing that you want to make sure of is that the authorized user card reports the full length of the credit history to the credit bureaus. Now, most banks and cards will do this, such as Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Discover, but American Express notably only starts giving you credit history at the time you are added as an authorized user. So if you are doing this, I would avoid American Express authorized user cards, but you can probably go with the rest. Another great thing about the authorized user hack is that often people under the age of 18 can actually be added as authorized user on their parents' accounts. So if you are under the age of 18, that is one method for you guys. Or if you are a parent with a child under the age of 18, you could start establishing their credit right away. Now, there are some age minimums though. I do believe some of the cards you need to be at least the age of 13 or 15 to be added as an authorized user. Now, what makes this a hack is that the authorized user doesn't actually have to spend any money on the card. So you can literally become an authorized user, put the card in a safe or something, or just far away and never use it, but you'll still be earning those on-time payments. Now, a quick disclaimer, you really want to make sure that the person you ask for this is someone that you actually trust, because if they actually end up missing a payment, it could negatively impact your credit score. So in that way, the authorized user hack is really cool, but it's also a double-edged sword, especially if the person that's adding you to their account is a little shaky. The second tip that I wish I knew sooner that actually has a pretty large impact on your credit score is keeping your credit utilization low, under 30%. In fact, the sweet spot is between 5 and 10%. Now, for those of you that don't know what credit utilization is, it's essentially how much of your total available credit you're using, represented as a percentage. It also represents 30% of your total credit score in terms of credit score factors, so keeping the credit bureaus happy when it comes to the amounts owed, aka your credit utilization, is going to be pretty important. So let's say you have a $1,000 credit line and you spend $300 on it, your utilization would be 30%. But in another situation, if you had someone else with a credit line of say $750 and they used 300 of it, that would be a 40% credit utilization. So even though both people spent the same amount, the first person with a lower credit utilization will be viewed a little bit more favorably in the creditor's eyes. You also want to make sure your credit utilization is less than 30% because lenders view anything more than this as a little bit risky. In fact, it's been reported across multiple sources that the best utilization rate is somewhere between 0 and 10%. If you're always making your payments on time and in full, you really have nothing to worry about. And the last thing about credit utilization is actually that timing. The percentage only matters when it gets reported. So if you go a little bit above your credit utilization throughout the month, that's fine. But when it does get reported, you want to have less than 30%. So when do credit cards actually report to bureaus? Now that depends. However, according to this article from Credit Karma, your balances are normally reported to credit bureaus on your statement closing date. So right before the closing date is when I'd be aiming to have my balance as low as possible for credit reporting purposes. Now, admittedly, I'm a little paranoid when it comes to this, so I actually find myself paying off my credit card almost every single week, which is part of the reason I think why my credit score is so high right now. It's around 800. All right, the next credit score tip that I wish I knew was to not close any cards, especially if they cost nothing to keep open. Your credit score is calculated by the average age of your credit history. That means if you have a card that's been open for say 1 year and another card that's been open for 5 years, well, your average age of that credit is actually 3 years. So 1 plus 5 divided by 2. But let's say you close that card that's been open for 5 years because maybe you don't use it. Well, you just dropped your average age down from 3 years just to 1 year because you only have that one credit card left with 1 year on it. So when it comes to keeping your cards open, you also want to make sure that you keep them active. That means once every few months or 6 months, just spend like $5 on them just to keep them active. Hell, you can even use this as an excuse to buy yourself a coffee because you'll be caffeinated and you'll also be keeping your credit score pretty high. Now, some of you will have a card that has an annual fee that remains open and you probably don't use it, but it might be costing you some money. Now, if that's the case, you can call up your credit card company and ask to downgrade the card to a free option, which I've personally done with Chase cards in the past. If that doesn't work, then you can actually consider canceling the card, but I would only cancel the card as a last resort. Hopefully this tip also makes you realize that you need to be a little bit more selective when it comes to opening a credit card, and it's part of the reasons why when I'm opening a credit card that I make sure to do a ton of research before applying for that card. Now, the fourth tip I have for you guys is to make as many on-time payments as possible. Now, if you have one credit card, it will report to credit bureaus at least 12 on-time payments per year if you spend on it every single month. Now that will increase as you get more cards. So let's say you have 2 credit cards. That means you have 2 times 12 months or 24 total potential payment opportunities. So if you really want to build up your credit score fast, one of the quickest ways is to make more on-time payments. That means if you use one main credit card and one credit card is just sitting there doing nothing, you might as well just consider spending a few bucks on that second card just to maximize the number of on-time payments that you can make. So instead of just having 12 on-time payments with one credit card per year, you could have 24. Now, according to our little handy chart here of FICO credit score factors, payment history actually accounts for 35% of your credit score. And so by making as many payments as possible, you're increasing the denominator of total payments, which will in turn increase your credit score. Now, if you remember from the first tip, being an authorized user will also report on-time payments. So that's just another bonus of tip number 1. Okay, so now you're probably wondering, okay, Humphrey, well, should I just open like 10 credit cards then and just make 10 on-time payments per month? Well, not so fast. We still want to be reasonable with the number of credit cards that we actually open. And that's because another thing that credit bureaus won't tell you is that by having too many credit lines, that can actually hurt your credit as well because the behavior looks a little bit fishy to them. For example, if they see someone with too many credit cards open, like 7 or more, that might just be a flag that this person is engaging in risky behavior because they might be thinking that you're using one credit card to pay off the other and so on and so on. So the next tip that I wish I knew earlier is to actually open another card if you can handle it reasonably. The reason why you want to open another card if you can handle it is that you can actually boost your score in some cases by opening a new line of credit through adding a new credit card. By adding this new credit line, this will actually lower your credit utilization ratio, and let me give you an example of that. Let's say you have one credit line for $1,000 and you're using $300 of it, like our earlier example. Well, your utilization there is 30%. But if you open up another credit card and they give you a limit of $1,000 on that new one, now your total credit line across your entire personal profile is $2,000. If you're still using the same $300 of balance, then your utilization automatically drops to 15% or 300 divided by 2,000. So just by opening up a new credit card, you've naturally lowered your credit utilization percentage. The other added benefit is that, as we alluded to earlier, you'll be able to make more on-time payments when it comes to having more credit cards. Now, one downside of having more credit cards though is that having multiple active accounts can actually make it more difficult to control your spending and keep track of payment due dates. So if you're somebody who's not good with spending and maybe not great with your money habits, then I would say to take this tip tip with a grain of salt and really consider whether or not it's worth it for you. I don't want the message to be misconstrued here. I'm not telling everybody that's watching this video to go, hey, go open a new credit card like immediately. But if you find it's like a little bit more reasonable and that you can handle it within your own finances, then it could potentially help your credit score. Of course, out of all the tips today, the main thing to remember is that to increase your credit score, you always want to be making on-time payments, and personally, I believe in full whenever you can. This will help you achieve the best possible credit score, which will help you in turn in the rest of your life. All right, guys, so that was 5 credit tips that I wish I knew earlier. Now, did you know any of the above? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you to all my Patreon supporters. I appreciate you guys being here, and I will see you guys in the next video, which will hopefully be in a few days here. Peace.